Welcome any and all visitors, and welcome any public comments that are unrelated to any of our agenda items this evening. Okay, come right up. You come up, you have to speak into the microphone.
I want to thank them for the beautiful care they're taking care of the Riverview Cemetery. I was up there yesterday and you paved that new section, you made that beautiful garden. I mean, it just really, it's beautiful. So I just want to say thank you.
Which is making the path easier for all of us to get there.
I'm not there yet, but my parents will.
Oh, okay.
But I just want to thank you. It really looks great.
Thank you. At that time, you may. Yes, ma'am. Okay. All right. With that, Scott, any changes to the agenda?
I have no changes to the agenda.
All right. So first on the item here is approving the minutes of May 21st. All right. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes of May 21st.
All right. Do we have a second? All right. We have motion and second to approve the minutes of May 21st, 2024. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Scott?
The select board under action items, the select board to possibly reappoint Scott Moore, the chief of the fire department, as our fire warden.
This is housekeeping, correct?
Yes.
I move to reappoint Scott Moore as fire warden.
All right, second?
Yep.
All right, we have motion and a second. Vince, by the way, was the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Scott?
The select board to possibly reappoint Michael Manhop, also known as Manny in the fire department, as deputy fire warden.
Is that how you say his name? Only because we have this, we are taping this. Manhot? Manhole? What is it?
Manny.
Okay, all right.
I move to reappoint Michael Manhop as deputy fire warden.
All right, we have a second. All right, motion and a second to reappoint Michael Manhop as the deputy fire warden. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Scott?
The select board to possibly approve the internal financial controls checklists. This is something we do every year. Christine Richter, finance officer and treasurer, is here. Any questions?
Right.
Well, that would
I
be
know
nice.
we're saying that now, folks.
There's not a lot to it. It's just the state auditor started this many years ago, and it's just answering questions about how we handle financial stuff. You guys all have a copy of it, so I guess if you have any questions.
I do have one question. This is just glaring thing that stuck out. Have select board members attended financial trainings?
Have you?
No.
Well, there you go. I didn't know, so I wrote don't know.
Well, is that some? I don't remember ever being asked to do that.
So I know VLCT does trainings regularly, and they just will list out sometimes who they suggest is good to attend, and there are some it's not like a specific select board training. It's just different financial trainings that are offered.
Okay, all right.
We would be happy to send anybody on the board if you'd like to be reminded.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
All right.
I went to school for accounting. Does that count?
Yes.
I did.
Sure.
Yes,
Yeah, good.
I think that would count.
Any more questions, folks?
And so it does also say, does each town official have copies of these policies and procedures? Can we just post this on the website?
The policies and procedures, we could.
Yeah. Just so then we have them.
Yeah, I know there used to be a select board kind of handbook that had all of the policies and procedures that was
Well, it'd be good to have-
rotated through select board at one point, but
has
I
been-
think there is actually a lot of what we have is on the website anyway, but
We don't, internal policies and procedures are not on the website. Our internal ones, a book was given to every department at one point. That was probably
10 years ago.
5 years ago. No, well, Billy was here, so, or maybe it was Sheldon. We'll say 5 years ago. So yes, they could be updated, but they do have a version of their policies and procedures.
I think one of the several things that Christine and I will be doing is reviewing that list from the auditor in terms of policies. And so maybe once we get that updated, we could easily put that on the website. It is public information.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
All right, so with that in mind, we have a motion.
I move to approve the internal financial controls checklist.
All right, we have a second.
Second.
All right. Motion is second to approve the internal financial controls checklist. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, Scott, the last action item.
The last action item is the select board to possibly approve the bid from Vermont Recreational.
Well, yeah, I saw.
Oh, Surfacing and Fencing Incorporated for the reconstruction of the tennis courts in the amount of $101,000. There were two bids. One was from Saladino and one was from Vermont Recreational. Vermont Recreational, he's been doing this, the owner's been doing this for 30 years or more. And we like the price. Keep in mind that we're going to do the first swipe of that whole system down there so that John Lozelle can get in there and inspect all the sewer that's underneath,
Right.
the sewer lines underneath. So we're actually, Marshall will take out as much debris as we need to. We still have to, he will still have to coordinate with Vermont Recreational. I'm told that we can do that. And then because our flood manager from the state went for another job, he's town manager up north, I think Hardwick, if I'm not mistaken, John Broker Campbell, who I had an agreement with. I'm going to go back and make sure we have an agreement with whoever is covering this area at this point for flood management. So we still have a few things still to do, but we think this is the best action. The likelihood is that in talking with my recreational and Marshall, best time for us to dig it up will be at the end of August. And then I believe they'll be coming in after Labor Day.
Gretchen, you pleased with that quote?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the select board knows that we have that small grant for, I think, $20,000. That will go towards.
Good.
So this is the full bid. And we have allocated funding through that grant as well as through the town line.
So we'll spend the grant first, and then there's no contingency in here, so this would act as a contingency.
Okay. All right. Somebody like to make a motion?
I move to approve the bid from Vermont Recreational for the reconstruction of the tennis courts in the amount of $101,000.
All right. We have a second. All right. We have a motion and a second to approve the bid from Vermont Recreational for the reconstruction of the tennis courts in the amount of $101,000. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The only thing I will say, I know there's been some discussion on turning the court around, but it already is more or less north-south. We're on a postage stamp there. We're not planning to turn it around at all. There are different dimensions, and we would be outside. The likelihood if we turned it, we'd be outside, but it almost doesn't make any sense because it would be east-west, and that's the way the sun is. And our little bit of research says that north-south is the way that the court should be facing. So we have friends. We're talking about the V-Trans bridge number 31. V-Trans to discuss and collect feedback regarding replacement of bridge number 31 in the center of town. I'm going to ask Laura Stone to introduce her team. And if the chair is all right, they can take it away.
Please do.
So
I'm Laura Stone. I'm the scoping project manager with V-Trans. We've hired VHB, a consultant, to do the scoping and design.
Probably gonna want to get you on the microphone, young lady.
Yeah, you can walk around with that if you want, but otherwise people won't be able to hear you.
I'll be quick. They're gonna run the show. So I'm Laura Stone. I'm the V-Trans scoping engineer. So we have hired VHB to do the scoping and design of the bridge. So Nina and Jamie and Wayne are here from VHB, and they're gonna run the show tonight.
Very good.
Let me share a screen so.
Just keep the mic close to you, Nina, when you, because it won't pick it up.
Here's a seat. Somebody sit here. Very good view. Another seat up front.
Do a two-screen thing? You have a screen there?
And because of the room, the way it is, you're gonna have to talk 10 feet beyond this guy over here.
Okay, got it. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for everyone for coming and for having us so we can have our local concerns meeting for the Bridge 31 Bridge project. The intent of this meeting there's a couple intents. First, to introduce ourselves, the project team, to introduce the project, and then most importantly, to gather input from you all. So first, we're going to discuss the existing bridge conditions. Then we're going to discuss the purpose and need of the project. We'll discuss a couple of design alternatives for the bridge, and then we will open up the floor for discussion and comment. So oh, I see there's a lag there. Well, we are talking about Bridge 31, which is a bridge right here, right across the street. So it carries Route 9. It's a very vital link between the two sides of the bridge, two sides of the stream of the North Branch of the Deerfield River. So it's vital not only that it carries a major state route through the region, but also it connects the two sides of town. So connecting people to businesses, connecting residents to their homes, and just enabling mobility through the region. So after nearly 100 years in service life, it's time that we can upgrade this crossing so it can serve another 100 years. So this next slide, before we get into the specifics about the bridge, this slide is to give an overview of the V-Trans project development process, and we will touch on where we are now. So right now we are in the very beginning of the process. We're in scoping and conceptual design. So the process of scoping, if anyone isn't familiar, is a process of gathering information, engaging with stakeholders and the local community, evaluating alternatives, and then ultimately coming up with a scoping report. So going forward, we, VHB and V-Trans, will be working together using the information we've gathered and the input we've gathered to develop our alternatives, to analyze them based on what is most important to the stakeholders in the community, and then ultimately present a preferred alternative in our scoping report. So we will be looking at our alternatives starting after this meeting, and we will be back afterwards to present our alternatives, as you can see on this slide. After scoping is complete and we've isolated a preferred alternative, we will move into preliminary and final design, and then ultimately construction of our preferred concept. So let's get into the existing conditions of the bridge. So starting off with hydraulic performance, I'm sure you all know that this is a major concern at this crossing. So the passage of the north branch of the Deerfield is constricted through the area. So on the east side of the bridge, the side that Cask and Kiln is on, you can see that the abutment juts out several feet into the stream, and this restricts the hydraulic capacity of the crossing. So there's that issue. And with a history of flooding at location, it's crucial to open up the span of the bridge as much as we can to allow more flow of water. Looking at the upper side of the bridge, we have two 11-foot lanes, 4-foot shoulders, and 5-foot sidewalks, which is appropriate for Route 9 given the village setting according to Vermont standards. There's intersections at each side of the bridge, Route 9 and Route 100 on one side, Ray Hill Road and Route 9 on the other side. And we are aware that congestion at this site, particularly at Route 9 and Route 100, is a significant concern. And the bridge being part of both of those intersections, it's important to consider that in our scoping as well. Talking about the condition of the bridge itself, so the bridge is concrete. We have concrete abutments, which is what we refer to as the substructure. And then the actual bridge itself consists of concrete T-beams and a concrete deck. So generally the concrete's deteriorating throughout. However, there's severe deterioration of the deck and the T-beams in particular, which we'll touch on the next slide. There's also a history of repairs at this site. So in place, there is a steel plate that's been paved over to protect the deck. Now going into the inspection findings, the deck and the superstructure are in poor condition. They're the most concerning elements. The substructure is in fair condition. Just waiting for this to catch up. There we go. So the bridge was recently inspected by the state in April of this year, and there was a critical finding that there is a hole forming in Bay 4 of the deck. And what you can see from the top side is, I'm sure many of you have noticed, if you look to the left there, there's kind of a line. That's where you can tell that the former steel plate was put in. Right next to that, there's some cracking and the exposed deck. And then if you look in the photo on the right, this is what it looks like on the underside. So you can see there's deteriorating concrete with exposed reinforcing. And that's where the inspectors detected a possible full depth hole. So being a critical finding, this triggers the need for a short-term repair. So you should see VTrans maintenance out here within the next month or so, installing another steel plate to protect that deck. And we will touch on that further when we talk about schedule. So this brings us to our purpose and needs statement. Given the condition of the bridge, given that it's nearing the end of its service life, it is essential to act now to come up with a plan for an improved crossing. So here we have our draft purpose and need statement. And the intent of a purpose and need is to identify specifically what our aim is with the project and what are the things to consider. So what we have drafted so far is the purpose of this project is to provide a safe crossing over the north branch of the Deerfield that meets current design standards and provides a 100+ year service life. The project is needed to address the structural deficiencies and deterioration of the existing bridge while improving resilience, hydraulic performance, and mobility throughout downtown Wilmington. So now that we have our draft purpose and need, let's touch a bit on some of the alternatives we're considering. So I'll introduce these a little bit, and then Jamie will go into some factors that we'll be considering as we evaluate these. So you'll see the first alternative is no action. Now that is not a feasible alternative here. that is just something every scoping report has to analyze to make sure that the project is really needed. But we know that no action does not meet our purpose and need statement. So it is not going to be entertained as an option. The second option we have there is bridge rehabilitation. So bridge rehabilitation is an option. However, if the superstructure was replaced, there would be no improvement of the substructure condition of the river being constricted, which is a major concern in this area, given the flooding and wanting to increase resiliency of the crossing. And the next alternative is having a new bridge on a new alignment. So if you look at the figure on the right, you can see this is a plan view. So like what you would see if you looked down on Google Maps or whatever map software. You can see the alignment of Route 9, the bridge, and the river going down the page. So you can see that there's not a ton of room for a realignment of Route 9, because on the north side of the bridge, we have dots, we have the cask and kiln building, and then on the south side of the bridge, we have the park, and then we have the Crafts Inn property with the Molly Stark statue. So geometrically, there isn't a great option for a permanent realignment of Route 9, though it is something we will be considering. Some impacts of a realignment, well, a realignment would have more significant impacts on the more significant permanent impacts on the surrounding properties because the road would just be in a new spot. The final option, or the final major alternative, is a new bridge on the existing alignment. So the benefits of this option are that the bridge on the existing alignment would possibly have less impacts than a bridge on a new alignment. However, the new bridge on the existing alignment presents the issue of how are we going to get traffic from one side of the bridge to the other. Whereas on the new bridge on a new alignment, you can kind of use the existing bridge as a temporary bridge in that case. So this is just a brief overview of all our alternatives. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jamie to discuss our considerations in more detail.
Thank you. So as Nina kind of described, the basic alternatives or the main alternatives that we're going to look at, there are, as we have started gathering information for this project, we visited the site, we've kind of identified some key considerations for the project in terms of evaluating all of these alternatives. And so the first, we kind of want to make it clear that we understand the importance of the downtown setting and the impact that this project will have on local businesses. And our goal as we evaluate these alternatives is to kind of mitigate those impacts as much as we can. There's really no denying that construction on this bridge is going to impact the local businesses and the community, but that is a key consideration for us moving forward. Maintaining the vitality of downtown and access to those businesses specifically, and, the surrounding properties. Another key consideration here is mobility. This is a main thoroughfare. Route 9 is a state highway. There's major intersections, as Nina described. I think there's close to 10,000 vehicles per day on this section of Route 9. Lots of bike and pedestrian traffic. Obviously, the access to the downtown businesses. So maintaining mobility here is going to be key. We have signalized intersections. There's also, we've visited the site a few times now, and there's a lot of large trucks, a lot of left turns onto Route 100, a lot of modular homes going through here. So these are all things that we're going to have to consider as we look at these alternatives. And we understand that maintaining mobility here will be paramount for this project. So as a way to, look into that mobility, we have several kind of traffic control and construction options that we will look at. So those can include, local and regional detours. We're going to look at several options for those. Phased bridge construction, which would consist of kind of, maintaining some traffic, probably like one lane on the existing structure and kind of building it in phases. So that's going to be a much longer construction season. And then other options include like a full closure with accelerated bridge construction techniques to try to minimize the duration of construction. So I wanted to kind of discuss some of the local detour options that we have identified just from our, information gathering and site visiting. So the first detour that we have kind of identified as a possible local detour option would route traffic from Route 9 behind the local businesses. So, out there right now, there's just a big, wide open kind of gravel, flat parking area. There's enough room there to, turn that into a temporary road, use that as a temporary local detour. We would need a temporary bridge to cross the Deerfield. It would be kind of right behind the Crafts Inn, and it would connect on South Main Street, kind of right in front of where the library is. And then that would get you back to the Route 9, Route 100 intersection. So that's one option we have looked at, or we will look at as a local detour. The second option would involve using existing, I think it's Town Highway 59, which you can kind of see in red. That is the second detour route. And then the blue portion on the screen is kind of where Town Highway 59 is. It's a largely abandoned portion. It seems like it's largely abandoned, mainly a path right now, kind of grass covered, but there is, enough width there to turn that back into some sort of temporary road. And we would again need another temporary bridge from Route 9 to connect to Town Highway 59. And then the detour would continue on Mill Street, I think Shafter Street, and then back to South Main Street to get back to the intersection with 9 and 100. All of this is very preliminary at this point. We have not vetted these fully. These are just kind of options, and we, certainly would like your feedback and any concerns or other alternatives that you might, have as well. Both of these options have pros and cons. The yellow detour option 1, that's going to keep traffic as close to those local businesses as we probably can. And the downside of this is that there's obviously significant right-of-way implications with it. And that's, could be a scheduling issue and, just the right-of-way process in general. The red detour option 2 is utilizing mainly existing infrastructure, so less of a right-of-way concern, but it's pushing local traffic even further from the businesses and kind of not as close to downtown. So those are, options we're considering. And there's also potentially some like geometric limitations with these as well. So that kind of leads us into, a regional detour that would maybe be better at accommodating some of the larger truck traffic, specifically the modular homes and some of the bigger, trucks as well. And this would involve utilizing Route 8 and then Route 100 to kind of bypass the whole area. I think it's an over 30-mile detour. It's probably like 50 plus minutes to drive. So it would be like an option that we will evaluate as well. Another key consideration that we have identified here is, the downtown historic setting. The bridge is located in the Wilmington Historic District, the Wilmington Village Historic District. The bridge itself is not currently listed, but it is eligible. So, it's essentially considered a historic structure. So there are, it's a classic 1930s concrete bridge. It was built in, I think, 1934. It is eligible to be listed, and it does maintain or retain a lot of its, historic character defining features, such as the bridge rail, the concrete bridge rail. So any alternatives that we evaluate and look at are going to have to consider, those potential implications, and not just the bridge, all four corners, all four quadrants of the bridge are also historic as well. There's dots, there's the Crafts Inn, there used to be a historic building where the park is located now, and then there's the cask and kiln building. So all of those are also historic. There's, additional concerns with the park and the resources associated with that. Some concerns for the historic buildings are specifically with dots in the cask and kiln building are that the foundations for those buildings are so close to the existing bridge. You can kind of see in these pictures that they butt up right next to the bridge substructure. And so any construction we do here could, there could be vibration issues with the existing foundations on those buildings. And that's something that we would monitor. And then there's also, it's a tight site. So there could be, acquisition and right-of-way implications with some of those historic properties as well. So that's all stuff that we need to evaluate further. And again, as Nina kind of touched on, resilience and the hydraulic capacity of this structure are key as well. There's been a history of flooding at this site, most recently in 2011. And so any alternatives we evaluate, we want to look at improving that hydraulic capacity, improving the resilience of this structure. So, that could include moving that abutment back, as Nina had mentioned. We could look at trying to put in a thinner superstructure to try to get more of a vertical opening. Having a smooth bottom on the bridge to allow debris passage and flooding events. Like these are all things we're going to look at and, evaluate as we move through this process. Some other considerations that we have identified are utilities. The bridge itself carries water and fiber. There's a lot of overhead utilities. There's sewer in the area. So just the coordination of this and, possible relocation of some of these utilities is something to consider. There's restrictions during construction with how close some of that construction equipment can be specifically to the overhead lines. So that's a big consideration there. Other considerations include right-of-way, which we've kind of touched on in a few different spots in this presentation, and then also public input, like the reason that we're here, to get your input, to get your feedback, hear your concerns, and take all of that into account as we, move forward in this process. So now that we've kind of talked about all of the, the basic alternatives we're going to look at, what we're going to consider, what are the next steps here? Nina mentioned that the state will be out here soon to do that temporary deck repair. We think it's going to be sometime this month. Possibly the end of June. After, meanwhile, we're going to go back after this meeting, after the input we receive, and we're going to evaluate alternatives. Once we evaluate alternatives, we're going to come back and we'll do another public meeting and present those alternatives. And then after that meeting, we'll prepare a scoping report. And then that kind of moves us into the broader schedule that you can see once it pops up. Once we get through scoping, which we anticipate being done in early 2025, we move into preliminary design, final design, with construction right now is currently funded for 2029. So that is the current schedule. That is, where it stands during the scoping process. That's obviously going to be vetted and evaluated further as we move through this process. But right now, construction is slated for 2029. And with that, that is, that concludes our presentation. And now we're going to open it up for discussion and questions.
If we're going to go around the town, all right, is there a way we could put a walking bridge in also? Maybe from the park over to maybe Crafts Hand, just so that the businesses downtown could survive.
Yeah, I think
they parked at high school, the old high school, whatever, and they could actually walk in town. Just a thought.
You're talking about from the park over to Crafts.
Correct.
so, like keeping that pedestrian
So we
access
would have a
on.
flow of people too. They could go into the downtown area. I think that's kind of critical.
Yeah, that's certainly something that we can evaluate further.
Putting together a wish list here, right?
Right.
I'm just trying to think of. I'm trying to think of an alternative, I guess, because that could really isolate folks downtown.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll just have to evaluate that, with the right-of-way concerns, with the historic resource concerns, with the potential park resource concerns. But yes, I mean, there is the room to do any of that would be on that side of the bridge.
Questions, folks? Oh, I think we have a few. Gretchen?
I just want to make a point. I heard you say water, sewer, and if I'm right, John, there's no sewer that goes across the bridge.
It's in the area. It's not on the bridge. I believe the bridge carries water and fiber or like
cable communications, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to-
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I really want to thank the agency of transportation for the way they are handling this time. I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember the bypass issue.
and don't even bring that up.
I think we should move it down. Well, I wasn't gonna bring that up. But the truth is, at that point, I was on the select board at that time, and the agency did offer the select board the opportunity to have some input. So another board member, Don Leon, and I lived in that area. Oh, my goodness, you really want to hear what I have to say? But when we got there, we found out that they had already let the contract and the consultant had already started doing the work that you're talking about doing here. So nothing that we as the select board or the town might have wanted to input into the process was possible at all. And one of the things that we would have wanted to have done was to be sure that the first thing was analyzed was what's going to happen downtown into this bridge if nothing was done, which is where we are today. That what did not happen until the way back end of the process, which allowed every bypass option to get its very own little no group who didn't want it. And therefore the town ended up voting it down. And now we're here in the same issue X number of years. So I really want to thank the agency for coming forward now. So I have actually two questions I'd like to put out, one of which is sort of a pickup on what Tom just said. In your mission statement, it would be wonderful if you could consider adding some language that recognized the need to not only do the engineering work that's necessary, but to maintain a pedestrian-friendly village, both during construction and after. And then the second thing, and I don't know how this is going to work, there's a whole raft of new flood regulations that are coming forward. And I know the construction cycle here will probably not happen until after all that's in place. How is that going to work with VTrans and what we might ultimately have to do with what the bridge actually looks like? It's just something to consider. I know you don't probably have answers to that today, but it's an issue. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Glenn.
Is there any way to put the sidewalks on the outside of the bridge so you have a double guardrail? You know what I'm talking?
So a protected sidewalk?
Yes. So it'd be almost like an overhang on both sides, and that would give you wider space for cars.
I just had a question. You were going over the alternatives before, and I don't need an answer, but going from the park by Crafts Inn with a temporary bridge over to the park on the other side and work on one lane at a time, like instead of closing downtown, right? So both of those alternatives, a lot of our members still will have access by, people parking and coming back into town. So a temporary bridge from the Crafts inside to where the park is, where you do one lane at a time.
So it sounds like you're talking about like I don't know if you can see, but my cursor here, it's like a one-way alternated.
Yeah, I own a bed and breakfast in town. I have a guest who's a bridge engineer, and he gave me all these notes, but I forgot half of them. So he essentially said, yeah, what your cursor is by the Crafts Inn, there's that open park area to now where our gazebo is on this side, and using like a temporary trestle bridge from that location over, right? And then doing one lane at a time. He called it a bridge term that I can't remember.
Yeah, honestly, that's probably something that may have to get incorporated as part of like that staged or the phase construction that we had mentioned, just because there is such limited width there, to maintain traffic on that bridge. It's something that might need to be utilized as part of that alternative.
Thanks, Tom. So I guess I have a bunch of questions. I'm going to try to narrow them down, just have a couple. So when we talk about the option of maybe having one lane traffic and that a longer time frame or a temp bridge somewhere and just get to it, what's a ballpark on that? So when we say shorter and longer, like, what does that mean?
I mean, if we're talking traditional construction, it's probably easily, at least I would say 2 construction seasons. If we're looking at accelerated techniques, I mean, it can be, there have been accelerated techniques where you do a full closure and it's, done over a long weekend. There's lead up to that. It's not just, the construction isn't isolated to that weekend, but there's a wide range there.
Do you see a possibility for like constructing in another location and then installing parts of the bridge here?
It's certainly something to consider. I mean, we've kind of floated the idea of that there's the option of trying to slide in the new structure, but then you still have to build the new substructures and,
For sure.
So that still is an impact to the town.
Okay, so I would say also, just to mirror what people are talking about, pedestrian friendly and traffic friendly. So, my gut is, how do we keep it as open as possible or as close as possible to being open to come through, as opposed to getting routed all the way around? Because I think that would be pretty bad for downtown and for downtown businesses. And certainly a walkway for pedestrians as well, because that's just to say what Tom said, if you're on one side of town and then you had to do some big loop around as a pedestrian, that's worse than a car. And I'll just speak for myself. If you have to route trucks and, mobile homes a different way, go ahead.
There are a lot of them.
Well, no, but that is, can you route trucks and the oversized loads that come through on Route 9 almost on a daily basis in a different way? Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are certain permits or whatnot that you can pull or that would require, they wouldn't be allowed to get that permit to travel that way, or I'm not entirely sure how it works, but we can certainly.
Woodstock did it, John.
Right.
Woodstock
Way to
did it.
change that, extend the life of our current bridge. And what are tomorrow's lottery?
I got presents ready. Feels the rumble every day.
I mean, even taking those trucks off, you're still gonna have a large volume of traffic daily. And, as Nina said, it's almost 100 years old at this point, and, it's exposed to salts and all the other elements of Vermont. And, it is kind of past, I would say, its service life at this point.
We have 2 others that want to speak. You want to speak?
So one of my questions was for rerouting. You mentioned like the gravel lot. Are you guys referring to the parking lot?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be removing one whole parking lot that we have downtown to reroute.
I don't know that it would be the whole parking lot, but
Okay.
yeah, I mean, to fit essentially 2 lanes of Route 9 traffic, it would be a big portion of it. Yeah, and we would look at options to mitigate some of that parking issue.
So along that lines, my concern is on that particular bypass, that's a 20-foot rise from the behind the west end businesses to South Main.
Yes, there is a big grade change there, and we would have to most likely ramp up that.
So my
temporary
concern
road,
would be 2 construction seasons. We're dealing then with winter in between with a 20-foot ascent bridge.
We could use that room with the accelerated plan. I mean, it might only be used for a lot less time, at least one. No, whatever the last time.
Talking like.
Oh, I'm done talking.
Give that to Mark, please.
I just think the last time, I mean, it's a little bit more convenient for a shorter amount of time. Let's just get it done.
Yeah.
Do what we gotta do, get the trucks out of here. Put a bypass, right behind the grass in, or even the other one, but something that still brings them into downtown.
Yeah.
Without just putting them right straight through, because they won't stop. It looks ugly.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we just have to balance the cost, like the cost of that as well, because accelerated construction typically has a pretty significant, cost increase to it. And then adding in all of the temporary infrastructure too does, so typically I'd say it's either or, but it's just balancing all of those.
All right, Mark?
The truck bypass of Route 8 and Route 100, two-part question. Number one, is the bridge in Reedsboro going to be replaced by then? And number two, how is a wide load going to go down through the snake of Route 8 without killing somebody coming north?
So the Reedsboro Bridge is going to be going out to bid in like 60 days. So that will get constructed over the next 3 years. And then those wide loads are permit vehicles. So that might not be their detour. Normal truck traffic would go that route potentially, but any of the extra permitted vehicles, the oversized loads would get routed on a route that they can handle because they're permitted and engineered analysis.
Okay, anyone else? Yes.
Which one would be best?
Well, obviously outside the crossing, but it would be tragic for this village to be negatively impacted during the peak season of our summer. It would just be devastating. And we've already had the flood. And I'm one of the ones who served for 10 years, I think, on the various bypass and the Schwartz Commission that went through, gave us a new layout for the town. Nothing was ever picked up on, and now we've got to do it. And I just hope that if we're in a corner, can we choose?
Yeah, I can take that. So our typical construction season is April 15th through October. And so if we're talking like conventional construction, it's going to take up that entire construction season. If we go with an accelerated, with a closure type situation, where we have, 2 weeks of a closure, and then, there's going to be construction for a couple weeks leading up to that, and a few weeks after. But yes, that would be, you could choose, within reason between that April and in October date. So that we do definitely want to have input from the town on that.
I would encourage us to do everything we can to do that accelerated one, obviously. Whatever support the town needs and the state needs for that, obviously that's going to be the preferred mode. Pro tip on putting a pedestrian bridge, just making sure it's high enough.
Wow. That's low. That was really low. Yeah.
Sorry, I had one more random thing, just for when you're coming up with your alternatives. Think about, even if you do one of these alternatives, how the trucks that service Dots and Village Roost and all of them, how the big semis get down here, make deliveries, and then pull a U-turn and go back out. Because if she can't get her deliveries, they'll make her drive somewhere to pick it up, something like that. So, yeah.
But let me ask you this too. When all of you conclude this meeting here this evening and you go on your way, does anybody have any cards here, maybe with an email address or something on it, so that if members are here and come up with other ideas or other alternatives, they could share them with you?
Yeah, I mean, my contact info is, well, it will be on the slide shortly.
Or they can send comments to Jess.
Okay. That would be terrific if we could do that.
And after today, we intend to do additional, outreach and public engagement. And we've kind of already started that, like Wayne has been doing that with other members of the town, and with, I think it's Wilmington Works. And, we intend to have more outreach and, keep this process going as well.
I'm sorry, Lisa?
So it's just a quick one. Is it possible for the public to get access to this presentation or like a link or something? Okay.
Yes, so there's a public facing website that all presentations on the bridge will be put on the website, and I will send a link that's in the town of that website, all like future plan submissions, like conceptual plans from proposed design, final plans will all be put up on that link so the public can follow the project.
So a legal question, with respect to the two alternatives that those go over private property. So how does that work? Getting, property owner permission. If one property owner decides not to give any permission because they don't like that option, what happens?
Use the trail.
I didn't take this. So there's a right-of-way process. When we determine the preferred alternative, our right-of-way section will go out, they appraise each property, and they set up, we set up property owner meetings, and there's a negotiations process. So part of that negotiations process, if we cannot come to terms with a property owner, then we can do condemnation meetings. For that, we need to prove necessity that we need that parcel temporarily for this project, and so it's legal proceedings, but we do have a process for that.
Okay. I was just wondering how that would work.
Yep.
I have a question. When you did the improvements on Route 9, you just took my land. Those tiny bit of money. So I don't remember any negotiation of the new laws in effect.
When was that?
Whenever you did Route 9 improvements 10 years ago.
Oh, it's been more than 10 years.
Yeah, it's about 10 years ago.
Processes might have changed since then. It sounds like they have.
Yeah.
I have a question, please. So beyond the scope and the size of the bridge itself, whether you use the accelerated program or the longer one, how far east and west will the impact be? And if is it going to be no traffic to the traffic light going east and no traffic past dots or further going west? When it's loaded with equipment, where are you going to park all this equipment at night? Or are you going to leave everything in the job site for 6 months or whatever it is? So can you give me an idea of that, please?
I mean, a lot of that will depend on the alternative, but in terms of staging, like, there's room, I guess, between Ray Hill Road and the bridge, and then there's also the park area. But yeah, I mean, the access, there's limited area for
So
construction
you'd be looking for additional area for equipment?
That's typically the contractor figures out for staging areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Has the bridge on the start of Castle Hill been evaluated? Is that the films or the eight? After flood, that period, second after the offer, place all of that on that.
You're talking about the bridge near the parking lot?
Yes.
Beyond parking, right?
Yeah, that would be that detour option, the red detour option goes over
Correct.
goes over that
But
bridge.
that's the street.
So- Have you guys opened up the inspection report for that one?
I haven't yet, but.
Yeah, we intend to, and yeah.
Okay. All right. Again, considerations, I guess, that's what we're.
All right, anybody else have any questions?
I just have one more question. Having just recently had the bridge replaced at the bottom of Hall Road where I live, they basically slid in a structure. They worked on the abutments, and that was actually fairly quick. And then they had a two-part bridge. It was two-part, right? Yeah. And it went in very quickly. I mean, that's a road that serves 4 or 5 households, which is much different than the 10,000 plus vehicles that are going over this bridge. But is that at all feasible? Something that can just be manufactured someplace else and slid in quickly?
Yeah, I don't know if a slide would be possible here with just the site constraints, but certainly prefabricated bridge elements. So we can have, a bridge prefabricated off-site, like the superstructure part. We can even have prefabricated substructure elements. And so it might have a little bit more construction involved and kind of putting the pieces together, but that's definitely being considered that accelerated option.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
I guess I have one thing to note. There was a question about utilities and water. So this bridge is part of the state highway bridge program. So it's 80% federally funded, 20% state funded. So in terms of that, there are no town funds involved, but because the water line is owned by the town would have a participating cost in that relocation. So just for the town to be aware of. The relocation of the water line.
night.
I'm sorry. I just figured I would tell you early.
We don't have a choice, we'll.
And they need to be relocated. So just something to be aware of.
All right.
Okay.
All right. We thank you all for coming here, and I'm certain you'll be hearing from our citizens here over time. All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you very
you.
much.
Will you, on the water item, will you be able to give us an estimated cost on that?
It's difficult at this point because it's pretty early on. So typically how it's handled is the town has to hire a consultant to do the design work for that.
No way.
Yeah, and I don't know if VHP offers those services. So I mean that.
We got it until 2028.
Yeah, 2028. I mean, it depends if you like are doing directional drilling or if you're just putting it to the side what the costs are. But
Thank you.
All right. Okay, folks. Oh, okay. We're going to have a mass exodus here now, or what's going to happen? We're going to go in the sewer here. Thanks again.
Instead of back and forth. Right, exactly. That makes more sense.
Hey, Jess, do you want to keep these on your desk?
This also.
Carry on, folks. Carry on.
I'm just figuring at 129, I won't.
Moving right along.
I won't be far.
In the sun or in the cemetery.
So we have to pay for it. So.
All right, hey, folks. Hey, folks, I move we go into the sewer commission. We have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second with the sewer commission. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you for coming, folks.
Hey, folks. Okay. Sorry, John.
One new application is an allocation application from Heather Thompson for 27 East Main Street.
Yeah.
That's the former Robert Jarvis insurance office. She is looking to purchase 638 gallons, basically to add a hair salon.
Right.
I would ask for.
Just have to turn the mic towards you, John.
I would ask please for a motion to accept preliminary allocation for 638 gallons for Heather Thompson, 27 East Main Street.
Okay.
So moved.
Do we need to do this all, or can we do this all in one shot? or-
Now they're all different.
Also.
Do we do it, we do it separately or?
We normally do.
We normally don't.
Okay, all right, so let's do it separate, all right?
So moved.
All right, so move, all right, a second? Okay. All right, we have motion and a second to approve the application for Heather Thompson at 27 East Main Street for 638 gallons for her hair salon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh. go to get to
You're
the
rolling.
jail.
The next two are extensions of preliminary approval. The first one is for 85 West Main Street. We granted him preliminary approval April 6th, and he just needs more time to get his permitting and stuff in place.
Okay.
This is that house
Down by the bridge.
just past Nidos. It's the one they moved up back by the solar
June
array.
Leggett's old house?
What's that?
June Leggett's old house?
You're way far.
You don't,
Yeah.
well.
Jerry
that's-
Costello did
it's-
it.
Yeah, I think you were in the third grade.
Okay.
All right, it's okay, yeah.
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 So I would ask for
3-month
three
extension.
month extension, please.
All right, so I'll move to make a 3-month extension for preliminary approval for Cliff Lineland, 85 West Main Street of 140 gallons for a 1-bedroom apartment. Do I have a
Second.
second? All right, with motion and second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. John, I think I already signed this.
You need to sign it that you've approved it for the extension.
Oh,
Yeah. So the same thing, we can do these two together. These are two brand new lots on Fairview Ave, Andrew Katsaftis. This is the former, it was Ted Pond's lot, and then Gary Henry. It's changed hands a few times over the last couple of years. Their plan is to break the lot up into two and build two 3-bedroom houses. And again, they just need some more time with permitting. So I think it would be fine to combine these two. There's lot 1 and lot 2. I would
Okay.
ask for a 3-month extension for the both, please.
All right. Someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Wow, that was quick. All right, second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for an extension, a 3-month extension of preliminary approval for Andrew Kosfatis. Okay, Fairview Avenue, lot 1 and 2. And for two new 3-bedroom homes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Go ahead, huh?
It's just two there. The next three are final approvals. The first one is for Melissa Nabelsky. I would like final approval. This is, she's changing the old CNS store into apartments. So she needed to purchase 325 gallons. So I would ask for final approval for the 325 additional gallons, please.
So moved. Motion? Okay, motion second?
Second.
All right, motion second to approve Melissa Nabelsky's Supergirl LLC, 157, 100, 325 gallons for change of use to store 2 apartments. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No one's opposed. We're over here, Tom? Oh, everybody, good.
Everybody. While you're doing that, we have 143 West Main. This is the Coriston Reed property. They were granted preliminary allocation for 1,120 gallons. They're adding 8 additional bedrooms to that apartment building. You've probably seen the construction down there.
Yeah.
I can't remember right now if it was 7 or 10 apartments, I think, when they're done.
Is that where the chiropractor is?
No.
No.
Oh, the other way. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you did the other way. Yeah, just before the nutmeg.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So, so I would like I would need final approval for 1,120 gallons for Coriston Reed Development Group, 143 West Main.
Okay. All right. Someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
So there we go. How about a second?
Second.
Motion a second to approve the Coriston Reed 143 West Main, 1,120 gallons for new apartments. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I should have just mentioned one more thing. This permit is based that they get they're right at the final steps of getting their state water and wastewater permit. So I've just got a clause in here saying permit is approved pending the state water and wastewater
Okay.
permit. I should have said that first. Everyone needs to sign that. So I don't forget, the last one is Vermont 211 LLC. This is out on 211 Route 9 East. This is the former Honora property. So I don't forget, I will say the same thing. This permit, if approved, is pending they have a state water and wastewater permit. There's been a couple minor issues, so they've got to amend it. So this approval of this would be pending the approval of the amended state water and wastewater permit. And this is for 3,360 gallons. This is for 10 apartments with a total of 24 bedrooms.
I have a question.
Yes.
So if they don't get the state permit, this application goes away? Because I'm asking about the fee of $33,600.
Yeah, if they couldn't get their permits, we have in the past refunded money.
Oh, I didn't know we did that.
There's a portion of it, not all of it, but there's a large portion that we would.
So that would be the plan if they.
Yeah, that's
fail
what,
to
so
get
that's why we normally give the preliminary approval.
Okay.
In a perfect project, we give them preliminary approval. They have 3 months to get all their permits in place.
Okay.
And that's also a grace period where they could pull out if they couldn't get those. This has been a really unique project because it had to go through Act 250, and there's been a lot of pieces with private property owners. They have a permit, they just need to do a minor amendment.
Okay.
But yeah, we have worked with, someone pulled it out at the very last stages once, and we did refund their money. They're a large portion of the allocation money.
I may not be in favor of that. That's why I'm asking. Thank you.
Well, yeah, okay. We'll stop there.
Would somebody?
Second.
All right, we have a motion for final approval of Vermont 211 LLC, 211 Route 9 East, 3,360 gallons for 10 apartments, including 24 bedrooms. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
And one more, which this is something we have not done for quite a while because we haven't had a whole lot of new connections. This is a connection permit for that same property. Normally, we would have done this a little bit sooner, but again, this has been a very unique project with all the permitting in place. And this also is pending any requirements. I'll just read, I think you guys have all seen it, but some of my notes that I've made. First, that I must be notified at least 5 days before construction begins. I've asked for a site visit with the property owners, the contractors and the engineer before any construction begins. And we've asked that the engineer certify in writing that all work satisfies Vermont plumbing code and that all requirements of the state water and wastewater permit and engineer specifications have been met. Then that's something we used to do. We did a ton of these back in the early 90s when we did all of the new sewer construction. So we don't do a whole lot of this nowadays. Again, we're just waiting for that final amendment from the state. Steve from Vermont from the property has already got me the prints that they've submitted to the state. So everything looks good. It's just getting that final stamp.
I guess that,
yep.
My question was based on why are we doing this first instead of that, waiting for the state permit? Just for convenience or timing? I'm not looking to grind it up.
So I do normally, this is pretty rare for me to ask to make this a condition. Since we were here, it was much easier. I didn't want to wait a whole nother month or to call a special meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So that is my
I was
biggest
just wondering what
reason.
the process was.
Yeah, we do normally wait until every permit is in place. But I know they've gone through all the local, they've done the Act 250. I've actually seen a state water and wastewater permit. It just needs to be amended.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. I'll make the motion.
All right.
If you're ready.
All right. I move to approve for Vermont 211 LLC, 211 Route 9 East to connect to the low bed sewer, which is connected to the town sewer. You have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
On here, right here. Those are.
Check the homework though.
Okay. So folks, I'm going to move that we come out of the sewer commission and I move we go into the liquor commission. We have a second.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to go in the liquor commission. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Scott?
The select board to possibly approve a request to cater an outside consumption permit for W.I. Foster for an event at Vermont House on July 15th from 4 to 6:30 PM. A request to cater an outside consumption for W.I. Foster for events at Ratu's on June the 15th, August the 2nd, September the 1st, September the 27th, and October the 13th from 2 to 6 PM and July the 5th from 1 to 4 PM.
All right. Anyone have any questions? Matt, I take it you've seen all these.
And met with Mr. Foster and the property owner. There's some concessions that will be made for safety and for supervision of the service area. They've agreed to that, so I'm okay with this.
Okay. So I believe with both requests, we can make one motion.
Yes.
Like somebody like to make a motion?
Okay, I move to approve a request to cater an outside consumption permit for W.I. Foster for the event at the Vermont House on July 15th from 4 to 6:30, and request to cater an outside consumption for W.I. Foster for events at Ratu's on June 15th, August 2nd, September 1st, September 27th, October 13th, my birthday, from 2 to 6 PM, and July 5th from 1 to 4 PM.
You have to go visit John.
All right. So with that, folks, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Okay. All right. We are now out of the liquor commission. Scott, other business?
No, thank you.
Select board members' comments. Tony, why don't you start?
I don't have anything. I think tonight was fairly informative about the bridge, and everything worked out well, so I'm good to go. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, Vince?
Just a question. Do we want to bury the utilities now that we had a mess with the bridge? Want to go for burying utilities now? Do it all in one shot?
Under the river?
We could ask GMP, I guess, huh?
Why not?
See how much it's gonna cost us to put the water on the bridge here.
Where's the toll booth going?
Yeah, I know. Halifax has been talking about that for years.
Really?
They've used to talk about it all the time. They could
On
would even have to
112?
charge taxes. Things would go so well. Anyway, John?
Toll booth.
Just so people know, the 88 Man Road, which was going to build the helipad, withdrew their application. So we won't, at least not for the time being, have a helipad on 88
We
Man
still
Road.
don't know what to do with our helicopters.
I know. I believe
Tennis
they're
court.
building a tennis court and a pickleball court.
Yeah.
Recreation.
Hey, by the way, there appears to be, is it 6 or 8 brand new pickleball courts up there on Route 100?
There are.
They're great.
Very nice looking.
Yeah.
In fact, before it was even painted and set to go, the word online was there was already 105 memberships.
Wow.
So
Opening day was packed.
there you go. There you go.
But the other comments I have is just, I thought today's presentation by the consultant for the state and the state was very helpful and informative.
They were good.
Yeah, it's
They
a
were
good
very
start. I mean, it's a good start.
Yeah. Well, they presented something that you could look at, which is nice rather than just, a verbal presentation that you're sort of guessing, like, what are they planning? It was, I thought, well done.
No, they put a lot of work into it.
And also they're starting in 2024 for 2029. So it was like, we will have input as a town with that amount of time.
And it sounds like that there's really a full outline of the alternative, of the shopping use, and if it's accelerated or not. That's there's something in the hallway. And so we're gonna have a really good plan to look at
work, so it seems like they're really taking the steps to make sure everybody's aware of everything that's going on and receive input at each step of the way, so.
All right. I don't have anything to add. Do you? All right, Scott, so let's go right to the updates.
So in the highway world, we anticipate work that Marshall and Jessica have been putting in for grants. We expect a structures grant for the East Brook Bridge and a Class 2 paving for East Dover Road. We just don't know how much, but it looks like that's all we're waiting for right now. So let's talk a little bit about July 4th and the second floor offices. I generally have at least one person who sort of takes up their office, keeps it open and that sort of thing. But this year, since 4th is on a Thursday, unless there's some big reason to keep it open on a Friday, I'm allowing everybody to take the day off as a vacation day. The clerk's office has informed me that they are open, but we have people with long weekend kinds of things for family and stuff like that. So unless there's a good reason for us to be open on Friday, we will put out the word that we anticipate being closed and for people to make appointments and that sort of thing in advance of that. If they were just planning to stop in or something, that probably is not going to.
Got to close on the 4th as well.
The 4th we are closed.
Trying to get as much work out of
Yes,
it.
it's the 4th we are closed, but it just seemed appropriate. that
Get a little work
People
done.
want to take their vacation time, they could do that, so. S55. I think I mentioned this a little bit because it's in my list here. S55 was signed by Governor Scott on May 30th. And Therese, myself, and Jessica have been talking about the impacts of changes to the open meeting law. Now, the idea is for public meetings to be fully accessible to both members of the public and those members of public bodies appointed or elected to serve their communities. So, for instance, if it is the select board or those boards that have authority over budget supervision and those kinds of things, and they're required now to record those meetings. And I'll send something out as soon as I have a legal double check my memorandum. We already do that, select board. Previously, you had asked, I believe, other committees to consider that. And in fact, by law, the DRB, we believe, we know the DRB, we know the select board, Board of Abatement and Civil Authority, we know those four. And I believe you're already recording on all of those except the DRB.
Yeah, and DRB should be recording. It's
But
ridiculous.
we are, so
I agree.
that takes effect July 1st. So I hope to have something out to all the chairs at that time. In addition, in talking further today, it was a good conversation. We believe that perhaps the library and the cemetery commission may also have to, as a subdivision of the municipality, they may also have to record. I'm going to double
The
check.
library runs the budget, so it probably.
And they have independent decision-making.
Yeah.
And supervision, and the same thing with the cemetery commission. So I would anticipate that all those groups will have a recording. Now, and also, for instance, if the select board decided that they wanted to all be remote for a meeting, on a regular meeting, we would still have to staff this meeting room. If you are an advisory, so think about this now. If you're an advisory committee, which would be like rec,
Beautification, trails.
beautification and trails, you can have a totally remote meeting. You just have to make sure that it's accessible to everyone either by phone or in our case by Zoom, that sort of thing. And if you're asked by either the press or an individual for a location where they could view and participate, then we would have to provide that.
They don't make it easy, do they?
Yeah.
It's like-
So Bytown is a subdivision. You are an advisory group. So yes,
Yeah, you don't make any.
so you can be remote, but you have to provide.
You don't make any decisions like that.
You have to provide, if you're, I mean, even if you're doing a hybrid, you have to provide access. So the idea is continued transparency. Select Board has been doing that. Teresa's meetings have been doing that. Rather than going through the whole thing, there are other things with regard to emergency declarations. When there's emergency declarations or serious local incidents, let's say we couldn't meet in this building. There has to be a declaration on the part of the highest ranking official, which would be either the chair or myself, and making a finding of fact of why we couldn't meet in this building. And then we would have to publish that. And there's other items there also. Posting on the website, we have to post on our website an explanation of the procedures for submitting notice of an open meeting law violation to the public body or the Attorney General, and a copy of the text of this particular section has to be on the website.
I think the whole open meeting law also has to be on the website.
Could be. I'm waiting for something a little bit more formal from the leagues, but certainly my initial memorandum that goes out, I'll just double check with legal to see that they agree with our thinking. Annually, chairs, town manager, or mayors of public bodies shall participate in a professional training that addresses the procedures and requirements by the Secretary of State on the open meeting law. So all chairs, town manager, and whoever you want to appoint as mayor. No. So it's a significant change in some ways to some bodies, but not a significant change to the way the Select Board and Teresa's groups have been operating. Keep in mind, we have a meeting coming up on June the 13th. That is a special Select Board meeting scheduled at 8:15 a.m. to discuss the short-term recommendations that came from A&E, which is sort of a continuation really of the May 17th meeting, or the April 25th meeting, and a follow-up based on information that you had. In addition, the groundwater study is underway. Jeff Hoffer out of East Burke, and he's hoping to conduct what he's calling a windshield survey early, I believe it's this week. He's trying to send a draft report by Friday, June 7th. And once I have the draft, I'll send that out to the Select Board. The Memorial Hall project, when we're talking about flood vents, the notice that FEMA wanted and the state wanted for the comment period ended May 31st. So I'm waiting for a final ruling on this project from probably the state at this point. The VORAC grant, we're having a particular section of the grant reviewed. This is a state grant, so typically we don't change too many words, but we're just having a particular legal section reviewed. And we should have that signed shortly thereafter. Let's see, town website and computers for cybersecurity and things of that nature. We're looking for Tim Bears from Vermont Geeks has made recommendation to upgrade the router and the server replacement, and he's looking for better pricing right now. And we're still researching on cybersecurity aspect of expanding our security for our computers. And we're researching website design with respect to upgrades, ease of use, ADA that's required, and other features that will create an improved image. So far, pricing that we've received is between 17,000 and 26,000. We're looking at we're trying to look at a third quote, possibly somebody local. Our U.S. District Court case, we will be having a mediation coming up next week. All other court cases have been resolved at this point. That's all I have for you tonight.
Right. Anybody else have anything for the good of Wilmington? Not seeing none. I will entertain motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, second?
Second.
All right, motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.